Hi everyone, it's Lennon, and today I want to do a very special to me walkthrough of the Mythologia Fennica tarot. This was very kindly gifted to me by Hanni over at Fierce and Pretty. I will leave her channel link below and the links to the interviews that she conducted with the creator of this deck, Susanna Salo, who graciously actually signed the tuck box for this deck and the book. So it was a very lovely gift. From the moment I saw some of the images of these cards, I knew I had to have the deck. And even before I received the deck, I actually had a dream of one of the characters, which felt very vivid and it was very real. And when I first got it, if you know anything about me, you know I'm a researcher, right? So instead of like just using the cards, like getting them all, using them, I neglected the cards for a little while and just read the book. I happened to be so excited the first couple of days I got this that I read the book and slept with this deck under my pillow. Tuck box and all. I guess to further bond with it, I was just so happy to have it in my possession that I've been reading the book. I don't have the stories down to memory as of yet, but a lot of the things stuck with me, especially when I think of the cards and their meanings and then how they relate to the stories. Susanna Salo created the deck to reflect Kalevala, which is a book, an epic story of Finnish mythology, right? And she did a fantastic job. And if you ever wanted to know, like the bare things about Kalevala, there's probably other resources, but this is actually a great text for a lot of the information. I guess you could call it the bare bones of the Kalevala. And she did a fantastic job with how to use the cards, maybe how to do a one-day card, some spreads, and did a fantastic job in the way she orchestrated the book. Because there's the name, which the cards don't say magician, high priestess, things like that. They're the names of the characters, or kind of something to do with the characters themselves, not necessarily the tarot names. So she's put the tarot names in parentheses under the name of the card. A few keywords, which are pretty good, and then some about the story. And then she does this gorgeous thing at the end of this section of that particular card, which is a conclusion, which basically links the story to, the divinatory meanings. For example, the full here is called the beginning. It says the primordial sea, Sarajas. Hanni wanted me to pronounce all these. Try to. Corresponds to the elemental chaos or the state of nothingness that preceded the creation of the world. Though according to folklore, the void wasn't utterly empty, for the female spirits of air and water inhabited it. Oh, that's so beautiful. Oh. Have faith in the new creating forces of the universe and boldly take a leap of faith into the unknown. So see, it kind of ties the story into the tarot. And she did a fantastic job. She does this for all the cards, I believe, including the minors. Yeah, there's a story along with why it may be called the birth of fire, and a little on the birth of fire, I'm guessing, and then a conclusion, which ties in the story. I guess it's like the why, right? If you had a question of why the birth of fire is the Ace of Wands, then the conclusion would be where you gain that. And those have been my favorite sections when reading the book. And I want to do a walkthrough. I'm going to try to do what Hanni wanted me to do and pronounce all the words. So we'll just come in here, get my flame out of the way. Actually, let's back up a second. I wanted to show you, this is like my swan, which we'll go over in a second. Actually relates a little bit. So, the beginning, which is the Fool card, which comes from the egg, the primordial sea, the spirits, right? Ilmarinen. He's a smith that forged the Sampo, which we'll get to that in a little while. Basically, the moral of Kalevala is there's this maid of Pohjola that has all these many suitors. And it's the story of the impossible task that the maid and Louhi set forth onto these men, and their journeys with those impossible tasks is what I gathered. So Ilmarinen is one of them. Mother of Lemminkainen. I love this because Lemminkainen is yet another suitor, but he's the prideful one, right? He's the one that's not going to stop. And his mother seems to be like his higher self in terms of the storyline, right? It's his mother, yes, but there's an aspect to her that is trying to keep him grounded, I think. And with her playing out the role of higher consciousness, that's a great interpretation for the High Priestess. Now, this is the character I had a dream of. I dreamed I was walking up this dirt path to Louhi's abode, right? It looked like a hut. I met with her. She didn't talk. She was stirring in a cauldron when I walked up to her. And that's all that happened. But I could tell it was her. And I could tell it was her by the gate, like the skulls. The gate, the fence-like thing around her hut seemed to be made of spikes, like wooden stakes, and skulls everywhere. Just looked very Pohjola, okay? So it was a very vivid dream. Väinämöinen. Here we have him for the Emperor. I like Väinämöinen's character in Kalevala. Not that I know much of Kalevala. I just know of what was in the guidebook. And I like all the journeys he goes on. And I like how driven he is. I like how he seems to be a good, like, to his word. Like, if he's like that person that you know that if they shake your hand, their word is their bond. And I think that is a fabulous interpretation for the Emperor card here, is a Väinämöinen. Here we have the Shaman. This is the English version. I do believe that in the Finnish version of this deck, it's called something else, but I don't remember the name. But of course the Shaman would be the Hierophant card, right? Here's the wedding of Pohjola. I believe that this is the wedding between Ilmarinen and the maid whose hand everyone's wants. This is their actual wedding. Ilmarinen is the one that gains her heart, I guess you could say, by building the Sampo. So, pretty cool. The lamentation of the boat. Now, this is an interesting part of Väinämöinen's story because there's a lot of play with the boat. Now, I think that the boat was in disrepair and he needed to repair it, but I also think that he had to fashion a boat to get out of the giant's mouth, which we'll get to that in a second. But it's, I guess, basically about the boat and it taking you where you're needing to go, things like that. For it to be the Chariot card, it's pretty cool. Here's Lemminkainen. Now, he's the one that's prideful, right? He needed that higher consciousness. He needed the mother there to kind of ground him. But in all of his tasks, he's one of those that just doesn't quit, right? And it's about, he's just so driven by his passions that he's often left ungrounded. And I believe that that's a good card here for strength. Now here's the giant. He is the giant sage. This sage is the hermit. Antero Väinämöinen. Väinämöinen. Is that how you say that, honey? Antero Väinämöinen. Antero Väinämöinen. I love this image. Some of these cards make me want to get my paints out. According to the interview done by Hanni, Susanna said that she used mainly charcoal, which I think she meant pencil, like pencil drawings, and acrylics, which are my all-time love mediums as well. So when I see this, I'm seeing all of that dry brushing and the brush strokes in this just make me want to get my paints out and draw some shit. I mean, it really does. And I love when I have a tool, like a deck, that does that gets all my creative juices flowing. And this is a depiction. I love that this is a depiction of the giant sage. I love that she painted his mouth open because in the story, he yawns, right? He didn't want to give up the words that Väinämöinen wanted or needed, but he yawned and Väinämöinen slipped in his mouth. It's a whole kind of Moby Dick thing happening. But it was very powerful to have his mouth open. I thought that was pretty cool. Now here's the infamous Sampo, right? This mill, this magic mill that spelled out like salt and money and riches and things like that. It was basically this magical mill that was supposed to give prosperity that Ilmarinen forged. So it's a very good Wheel of Fortune card. Here we have love rivals. Now I believe that this is all three of them, to be honest with you, like separate depictions in one card of all the love rivals for the Maid of Pohjola. I think that's how this is going. Now this was an interesting card because this is called Dueling Singers, and Väinämöinen is a good singer, right? He's got a good singing voice. But when somebody challenged him and wanted them to have like a duel, like singing duel, but Väinämöinen ended up winning. But it's just about like humility and how much work we put in to still lose, kind of a thing. There needs to be some humility at the end of that. Like, you don't need to be a sore loser. Oh, this is like one of my favorite cards in the deck. This is the Last of Tunilla. Basically, she ferries the dead over this black river, right? This is the swan is a soul bird, which I found utterly fascinating. Basically, it's a Finnish belief that a soul bird is what flies out of your mouth with your last breath. Like, that's how the energy and the spirit moves on. It doesn't just stay in the decayed body. It goes out through your breath. That's why the dead bodies have open mouths. I thought that part of the story was utterly fascinating. Oh my God. Plus, it makes me think of Candy from Candy, Soul, and Soil, the sacred swan. Now here we have the Maid of Pohjola, this maid, which is Louhi's daughter, that all three men want to marry. This beautiful maiden in white here. And as the Temperance card, I like that because it's kind of about balancing like who did what as far as the men goes. She gave impossible tasks, and some of them fell through, some of them didn't. But I do believe that there's a lot of play here on creative forces, right? Her dishing out all these assignments to these men for matrimony, and there's a balance in that. There's a creative finagling that needs to happen. So that's pretty good. I love reading about the devil. I've read this passage several times in this deck. Basically, the message is, it's not ill to get the devil. We just need to unbreak moral codes within ourselves, like unchain. And that could be as simple as you feeling trapped, right? You feeling trapped by moral codes and needing to get unchained, open the lock of the cage for your bird soul. So I think that's a good message here. And I think it's painted here to look like what would be the Finnish devil, the great oak. As the Tower card, this was a powerful depiction for me because I think of the dwarves of Lord of the Rings when I think of this small man that comes out of the sea that's supposedly going to cut down this great oak. The reason it needed to get cut down is that it got so big that it covered the light of the sun, right? And that's not good. So Väinämöinen had to set out and find someone that could cut down the tree. But when the small man appeared, there was some doubt, right? Like, how can this insignificant looking person cut down this great oak? And he ended up growing bigger than the tree and chopping it down. And I think that it's about like there's an underdog story there. There's an insignificance, like what we may think is insignificant isn't. It may play a bigger role in our lives than we think. And I think that's the message of this Tower card, which is so fantastic. I like how this is an Ouroboros, but then there's a sacred spiral here. Kind of makes me think of a universe inside of a universe, inside of a galaxy and shit like that. Like this is said to be where Väinämöinen lives as well, in the North Star. Oh, man. Susanna, if you're listening, I just want you to know that you have the greatest ability to make your dogs in this deck look vicious And that is saying something. That is very good. I don't think I've ever painted a dog, but I don't think that I would be gifted enough to make it look vicious. Basically, this is the gates of Pohjola, right? The moon card. This is about challenges on the path that leads to Pohjola, which is where Louhi lives. I think there's all these challenges, right? There's like lava and flaming eagles and things like that you have to it's like Hercules almost. Like you have to do all this stuff to even get to the gates. So it's about the challenges you face along the way. It's pretty cool. Liberation of the sun. Now this, I think, ties back to the great oak. Getting rid of it, having the sun free. Feast of Kalevala. Kalevala. I think that's how you say that. Basically, this is the wedding, but it's the feast, like the reception, I guess, after the wedding of Ilmarinen and the maid of Pohjola. And Lemminkainen wasn't actually invited because, you know, he's that arrogant son of a bitch. Nobody wanted him there. It's like a Garth Brooks song waiting to happen. And he shows up anyway, right? So as the judgment card, that's pretty good. It's about learning and having the qualities that Lemminkainen does not possess. So that was pretty good. This is absolutely one of my favorite world cards of all time. I received this necklace as a gift from my father years ago. And it immediately, when I saw this depiction of the world or the universe or however you want to say this particular card, it made me think of this. So it ties me to my dad and it ties me to that line of ancestors. It kind of like ties it all in for me. And it really cemented the fact that I needed the deck in my life because this is part of my spiritual jewelry. Love it so much. All right, now that was the major arcana. I want to go over the minor arcana. And we're going to go a little bit faster because these are just snippets of the story instead of like the big chunks of story like in the majors. So I'm going to go through them. And if something jumps out at me as far as story, then I may say something. Birth of Fire. I like that there's a forge aspect to the wand suit here. Like Birth of Iron, Blind Man's Guide. There's so much information in the guidebook for all of these. Swiden of Väinämöinen. Swiden? I think this is the flaming eagle, right? So this is something that he endured on the path to Pohjola, I'm guessing. Lempo. I think this is a bat, like a devil bat or demon bat, something. He looks scary as hell. Fire fox. I love foxes. I love their cunning nature, right? Like there's a lot of conniving. There's a conniving soul that lives in foxes. Wolf's Bride. I just love how Susanna paints dogs. Or wolves in this case. They're wolves. A sauna. I think Hanni's talked to me and several other people about the sauna too. Like she even made a video, I think at Christmas, of her going in and like hitting her back with the herbs in there. So there is something sacred about the sauna in Finland. So of course that had a place in the tarot deck, right? The Golden Bride. Doesn't she look lovely? God. I love the courts in this because there's like an animal or a person or a spirit. Really plays out with the energies of the court cards when you read about them. The eagle. Again, the flaming eagle. The horse of Hissi. I think it's Hissi. Hissi. Mother of Fire. Panu. I don't know. This just looks like a flaming Jesus to me. Which is excellent. I love the brushwork in this. I'm telling you, right after this, I'm going to have to paint something. Toast of Ukko. Ukko. spring spirit. I love that I can automatically think of the Two of Cups when looking at this. But for some reason, the image really allows my intuition to come out. I can imagine a whole story surrounded by these paintings that fires off sensors in my intuition and gets my juices flowing. And I love that about this deck. Kenta le Vainamainen. I think that that's like a guitar. It's a musical instrument. Ikotorso. This seaweed monster. I love this. I actually studied a little bit of Ikotorso, like according to Wikipedia and things, because Hanni actually sent me an art card, and this was what I got, was Ikotorso. Beautiful seaweed. I mean, that definitely looks like a seaweed monster. Will-o-wisps. Don't you just love, like, when you watch that Disney movie Brave, which is actually a Scottish movie, and she's following the will-o-wisps, right? And you follow it to your supposed dreams, right? I've always found the will-o-wisp fascinating. Bog spirit. I seem to talk a lot about bogs on my channel. Maybe it's my love of labyrinth, you know, or something. Maybe. Nikki. I think this is like a frog entity that lives on the edges of ponds. Susanna talked about this vision that she had for this card with this particular entity in the interview with Hanni. It's very fascinating. Vortex as the Eight of Cups. God, isn't that beautifully painted? Rapid spirit. I love this face here. And it looks like water, like rapidly moving water, like river water. But there's a face. I love to look out for things like that when I'm on the lake here. The pike of Tunella. I can't tell in this, what's the pike? Is the pike the fish? I'm just uneducated. I know. I think that this is a maiden that was transformed into a mermaid, or a fish maiden, something like that. It's very fascinating. So this is the knight. I love this image. And then we have Velemo. I'm trying to think of like Finland, like Finnish language. It doesn't always work out. Ati. It's A, because there's no ein. Anyway, AT, I think. It's just excellent. Now we're getting into the air suit. Bumblebee. I love that he's got his little nectar there. Folk of Lintkoto. Lintkoto. Gosh, I hope I'm not butchering these names. Lekio. No. Lekio. Is it O? Or Ein? Look at this image. Cold breath of winter. Something about this deck makes me miss the smell of winter. Miss the smell of cold. I love the smell of cold. I love winter. Okay, winter is my shit. And looking at this card, it makes me want to smell snow. Ugh. Heitemainen. Look how beautiful this depicted. Folk of the graveyard. Ugh, people of the graveyard. That's just excellent right there. Etianen. My name sounds a lot like Finnish language. Lennon. Kakianen. I try to do it slow. Hanni always says the shit fast. I have to go slow. Witch's circle. Oh, isn't that beautiful? Mushrooms. Oh, it's like how rich the air is in like a fairy circle, right? Heavy, heaty spring or summer. That's what I think about. Like the air is heaty. The white deer. Love that. Court of Serpents. Like, I love this light dot on the egg because it kind of makes it look like an obsidian egg, not like a eggshell egg. Now we're getting into the court cards. This is the Raven, the Elk of Hisi, Ilmatar. I love that. She makes the clouds and the sky and the water and all look like people. Just, oh, here's Ukko. I want to know him. He's got some good stories. Pelonpeko. I don't know why I say that multiple times, like when I'm trying to pronounce something. Metsampeto. I hope that Hanni's not sitting there just laughing at me. Tontu. I love this. He looks kind of like a gnome, but a cyclops all at the same time. I love that this looks like that. You know, that's those Swedish sweaters kind of looks like that, like almost like a serape, like a stitched, like a woven tapestry almost, kind of a thing. Arnenkrati. Ooh, that one's vicious. I do like how she painted the trunk here. That's pretty cool. Para. Domestic snakes. I do like there's an underlying color scheme, you know, in the elements themselves. Like, you can tell which one's which from the color palette that she uses. Mountain trolls. Oh, I love mountain trolls. Love their stories. Meinen. Stone labyrinth. Oh, it's beautiful. Pyrrhotinen. No, it's Pyrrhotinen. Beetle. Love this. Look how beautiful this forest maiden is. God. It's like you can't tell if it's her hair or antlers or just regular bones that she's fashioned into like this headdress. But there's something about her that just makes me want to visit her in the forest. The bear. I like that little skull in the tree. This kind of reminds me of the area that I live in, the mountains in my state here in the U.S. These are the Great Smoky Mountains. It very much looks like this at dusk. And bears too, black bears. So this kind of reminds me of home a little bit. Doesn't this look like Lady Macbeth? Every time I look at this card, it makes me think of Lady Macbeth. Miliki or Miliki. I can't seem to see if it's I or E. Miliki. I think it's Miliki. And then Tapio. I love how there's this like Cernunnos type of a figure in the back, but then there's also a profile here that looks like it's made of wood. It's just, the art in this deck is excellent. Excellent. I hope you enjoyed this walkthrough. I will try to leave the link to Susanna's website or a website in which you can buy this if it's still available. I will look it up between now and uploading this. And go check her out, and go check out the links to Hanni's channel and the interview below in the resource section. I will continue to love on this deck, and maybe I'll get it out and share it on the channel again whenever I have like a new experience to share. Hope to see everyone again. Much love.